Hello everyone, this is Ketish here. In this video, I'm going to go through the AQA 2023 Biology Paper 1 Higher Tier, question number 5, which is mainly on the topic from infection and response, but it's focused on the cell structure. The protist that causes malaria is passed from one person to another person by mosquitoes. What term describes an organism that passes a pathogen from one person to another? It's called a vector. Mosquitoes, flies, rabbit, animals can all be vectors if they carry a pathogen. Figure 7 shows the malarial protist. So you can see it doesn't have a cell wall, it has a cell membrane, a nucleus, some ribosomes, and what looks like mitochondria. And this is probably the feeding area. Don't know, right? So the malarial protist is a eukaryotic cell. Describe 3 ways the structure of the malarial protist is different from the structure of a prokaryotic cell. Do not refer to the size in your answer. So, because it's a eukaryotic cell, it will have membrane-bound organelles. So that means it has nucleus with a nuclear membrane, mitochondria, ribosomes. It will have DNA, which is inside the nucleus. It shouldn't have a loop of DNA or DNA on its own, and it won't have a cell wall as well. So any 3 from this would be enough to gain the 3 marks. So protist, it has a mitochondria, it has a nucleus or DNA, and it's not free in the cytoplasm, and it doesn't have a single loop of DNA or genetic material. It doesn't have plasmids, and it doesn't have a cell wall, whereas prokaryotes would have. Prokaryote would have a plasmid. During one stage of malarial infection, the malaria protists enter red blood cells and cause them to burst. Suggest explain why the bursting of red blood cells causes tiredness. Now, if the red blood cells are bursting, that means you're going to decrease the count, your red blood cell count. That means less oxygen is carried. That means less respiration taking place because less oxygen is being carried around your body. So less oxygen is carried in the blood, less energy released from respiration, hence you feel tired. The malarial protist reproduces sexually and asexually during a life cycle. Complete table 3 to give 3 differences between asexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. One difference has been completed. So sexual reproduction involves 2 parents, asexual involves 1 parent. Now, there's a quite lot of differences between sexual and asexual. Here's the marking scheme answer. Let me just make this bigger so that it's easier to see. So, involves gametes joining, or sexual reproduction involves fertilization, whereas asexual reproduction does not involve fertilization. Sexual reproduction, there's mixing of genetic genes, or there is genetic variation, and in asexual there is no mixing of genes or there is no genetic variation. And sexual reproduction involves only meiosis, and asexual involves only mitosis. And meiosis requires more energy, whereas asexual requires less energy. If it's asexual reproduction is slower, whereas sexual reproduction is much faster. One drug for treating malaria prevents mitosis occurring in the malarial protist. The drug stops the synthesis of new DNA bases in the cell. Suggest how the drug prevents mitosis occurring. Now, if there is no DNA basis, then there can't be any DNA or new DNA being formed. So there is no DNA replication, cannot actually occur. Describe the process of cell division by mitosis. Now, mitosis is the bit where the cell is actually dividing. So once all the contents in the cell, like the mitochondria, ribosomes, and all the rest of the stuff, actually replicate. Finally, the DNA replication actually happens to increase the number of DNA, or doubles the DNA amount. Then, so the DNA, after DNA replication, one set of chromosome is pulled to each end of the cell, and then the nucleus divides. Following the nuclear division, the cytoplasm or the cell membrane also divides to form two new cells. Different types of diseases may interact. Scientists studied the incidence of malaria infection in children, those with disorder S and without disorder S. The incidence of malaria in children with disorder S was calculated as a percentage of the incidence of children without disorder S. So between the ages 2 to 4, 69% of incidence of malaria with disorder S, compared to that without the disorder. 4 to 6 is 63, 6 to 8 is 50, 8 to 10 is 45. So it generally increased as the age increased, and then anything above 10 years old, the percentage is 73. That's actually a massive jump. So describe what the results in table 4 shows about the interaction between disorder S and malaria. So these are the percentage of kids who have the malaria. So those with disorder S, as the so here's a typical answer. Having disorder S reduces the incidence percentage of malaria. So it's only 69 as opposed to with the disorder. So you need to understand what's actually happening in this column. So they're comparing those. Let me read that part. The incidence of malaria in children with disorder S was calculated as a percentage of incidence in children without disorder S. So having disorder S reduces the incidence percentage of malaria. As age increases, a lower percentage of children with disorder S get malaria until age 10. Then the percentage increases. That's the end of this question, and I will see you in the next question.